So as we're going along, sharing our story, hearing other people's stories, connecting them to the stories of Jesus, inviting them along to belong and connect with others, as we're kind of moving through all those things, helping people process and manage objections they have to faith and maybe from their own stories, or intellectually, somewhere along the line, it's important that people start to make commitments. And honestly, in the ways that I've walked with people through their life to move them towards Jesus, and this is usually not a part that I have to press on. It's usually a part that they press on. They say something along the lines of, aren't I supposed to make a commitment here somewhere? And or they just start making commitments. They start saying, what would it look like for me to trust my whole life to Jesus? We talked about before how kind of in classic church circles, what you get is you get somebody to pray the prayer, and how strange that is if you look at it biblically, that no one in the Bible prays the prayer. Actually just doesn't happen. So that's sort of a device that's been developed, which, by the way, praying prayers is always good. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. Don't pray prayers. But the idea that somehow that's the magic bullet that helps someone enter into life with Jesus isn't really in the Bible. What we do see in the Bible is the picture of baptism. That baptism is a picture of someone saying, I surrender the whole of my life to Jesus. That as Jesus died, I also die. And as he rose again, I now raise into new life in him. That's in Romans. Peter talks about being cleansed. That baptism is not just a symbol, but it is sort of a spiritual representation of entering into life with Jesus. And that baptism should be public, inviting your friends and your family. So when you look at the scriptures, baptism is a sign of surrendering the whole of your life to Jesus. For example, the Ethiopian eunuch in Acts, as Philip describes faith, somehow he described faith in such a way that he described baptism. And the Ethiopian eunuch says, there's some water right there. Why shouldn't I be baptized? So it makes sense to call people into commitment, to tell them that really God wants the whole of your life, and to maybe even describe what baptism symbolizes and represents. In the life of our church, and in my own personal life, walking with people, I feel like you're calling them to make dozens of commitments and conversions in their life. But there's something about baptism when somebody says, no, I'm going to do that publicly in front of the people of God, in front of my family, in front of my friends, I'm going to invite. There's something about that that's making a commitment that's ritualized, that fits within the history of the church for thousands of years. And I think it's the kind of thing eventually, as we're with people, we discuss, we talk about, this is what that means. And does that represent the decisions you've made? I'm amazed to watch people, a lot of people like the Ethiopian eunuch that go, oh my goodness, I should be baptized. But I've also watched the opposite of somebody. We had a girl in our church who went to no less than 4 baptism classes to hear about baptism and never got baptized. And after the 4th one, she said, I don't know why I thought the class would be different, but it sounds different to my ears because I've actually been following Jesus now. It's time to be baptized. That was over like 2 years. She was in the church, walking around. But every time it got to, will you give the whole of your life to Jesus? She was like, there's some things I'd rather hold on to. And I don't know, I find that really to have a ton of integrity. There's lots of people that would say they follow Jesus that don't trust the whole of their life to him. And so I think it's really powerful to watch people move towards baptism. And then also we start to notice conversion in the way that people commit to the people of God. Are they committing to serve and to give, to be accountable to, and submit one to another? That's another one of the signs for Paul that you're a believer. You follow Jesus as you're in the context of community. And so again, if we've been walking through the process we've been talking about, where they're belonging to believe and behave, well, that's going to be really natural to them. Sadly, it's less natural to people that maybe grew up in church just having to go to church, but never really belonged with others. Most that I've seen walk into life in Jesus in our church, they came through the doorway of connecting with others that led them to understand who Jesus is. And it makes the most sense in the world to them to then be sacrificial toward and with the church accordingly. Because that's how they came to faith. They came to faith with the people, and so their expectation is to continue to walk with people. But others have come through other doors. Maybe they were raised in church. They think, all right, well, it's time I just get right with God. And part of what we do is we help people walk along is go, man, committing to Jesus is committing to his church. Have you thought about what it looks like to be committed to a people and to live life with others and to submit one to another and be with people that are different than you? And then also have that affect your money, that you are learning how to be generous with your money is also a sign of commitment and conversion into the kingdom. I guess the point I'm trying to make is as we go along, there's many little commitments. Baptism seems to be a critical one. Connection to the church by way of service, giving, and submitting one to another. And it's right to begin to bring that up as people are walking along with us. Like, gosh, what do you think it would look like to commit and connect to a people? And maybe have you considered baptism? Here's what that symbolizes. And it's a way of demonstrating that you're giving everything to Jesus. I wonder, even as you've been walking with some people, maybe through this process, or some folks even know in the life of our church, if there's some folks you could talk to about this and go, I really want you to consider what it would look like to maybe be baptized and or commit yourself to the people of God. So we have some ways for you to think about that, to process that, and maybe even ask yourself some of these questions so that you can begin to invite other people along.